Hello everyone, this is James Shore with another test-driven JavaScript video. I'm recording this on May 20th, 2013, picking up right where we left off in the last episode. In this chapter, we're working on modularity. We're going to use the Browserify tool to introduce modularization, sort of an automatic module require feature into our code. Right now, we're just using globals, which is a bit clunky and doesn't scale as we continue to add new files. So the first thing for us to do is to install it. So let's go ahead and install Browserify. It's an npm module. Okay, now that it's installed, let's make sure it works. We should be able to just run Browserify out of our bin. There we go. And the way it works is fairly straightforward. You just give it the entry point, which in our case would be source client client.js, and then provide an output file, or it will just output to the standard out. So let's go ahead and look at that. You can see what it's doing here is it's putting in a whole bunch of boilerplate to make the require function work. There's a require function being created here. And then it just concatenates all of our code together into a data structure that can use that. Now I haven't looked at in detail how that works, how that data structure works and how it all fits together. And hopefully if Browserify works properly, we shouldn't have to. So now let's go ahead and check that in. All right, now that we've got that installed, the trick is going to be to integrate it into our automated build. Now, luckily, Browserify has a fairly nice API. I haven't tried to use it yet, but the documentation looks pretty good. So we should be able to go into our Jake file and create a new target. Let's call it, well, let's call it Browserify for now. We'll come up with a better name later. So that's in our Jake file. There we go. And we'll require Browserify. Let's see. And then doing something about it. Well, it should be just this straightforward. Let's see what happens when we do this code exactly. That will fail because there's no browser main.js. So let's change that to client.js. That's not found either. Oh, well, it's because it's source client. Haha. There we go. That's great. Okay, so we've got Browserify running from Jake. Fantastic. Okay, now that we have this working, what do we want to do with it? When I say working, I mean it's sort of working. Well, ultimately, what we want to do is we want to get rid of the need for all these different source elements. That is the ultimate goal. Now, what we're doing here, this is going to lead to some, I think, sort of tricky build questions about, do we check in the generated file? How do we want it all to fit together? I don't really know the answer to these questions yet, but let's do this. Let's have the generated file go into here. Let's make a new subdirectory called build. I honestly don't really know where this is going to go yet. So we'll make that. Browserify will depend on that builder. And we'll have our smoke test depend on Browserify. So I should be able to say Jake and have it do its thing. Yes. Yes, good. So now we need to have this output to a file. I'm going to take a moment to look up how to do that. Okay, I'm back. As usual for Node modules, for whatever reason, the documentation is mediocre. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not great. But I'm looking here at the command.js, which is actually the command line tool. And it looks like the way we can output to a file is just by doing this. So let's see if we can have Browserify write to a file. And let's put that in builder plus bundle.js. Let's just see what happens with that. FS is not defined, so we'll need to require it. FS, of course, is the built-in Node file system module. Okay, that seemed to have worked. Let's see what we got. Oh, this is promising. Yes. Yes, excellent. Excellent. Okay. That's great. So we've got this bundle here that has our JavaScript in it. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm just going to amend my previous commit. We're bundling it. Let's go ahead and modify our Jake file to bundle all of the different files. Now, I think we can do this actually by just saying each of the client files we care about here. And I think what I'll do is I'll see if I can get a file list. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work, but let's try doing it this way. We'll bring in all of our client.js, and then we'll exclude our test files. And then we'll tell Browserify we want that. I don't think we have to do this .add. I think we can just say client files.toArray. Not 100% sure about that. Let's try it and see what happens. Did not work. Let's try /. Okay. Don't know if the problem here is the file list or what, so let me try doing it this way. Okay, that works. And does that give us what we want? So far, so good. And if we add SVG canvas, does that work? Yes. Yeah, here's SVG canvas right here. Great. And now let's bring in HTML element. So we'll do the file list stuff later. Okay. That's all good, I think. Except it seems to have broken WebStorm, but other than that, there we go. Now this should all still build and pass and everything. Yeah, seems to be fine. Just going to toss in a console.log. Okay. So we've got them all bundled together. Now the question is, now that they're all bundled together, can we use this bundle.js in place of what we're doing everywhere else? Let's just try it. I'm going to manually copy this over. Oops, not this one. Manually copy this over and load this in the browser. This should fail because all the files it depends on aren't present. And then I'm going to change this to say source equals bundle.js. Get rid of the other stuff. And will that work? No, it doesn't work. Why not? Because jQuery is not defined. Yeah, we've got jQuery and Raphael as well. Let's bundle those two for now, but this is not necessarily how we want it to work long term. So as usual, I'm hacking a little bit. I'm just trying to get this working and trying to improve my understanding of it. Yeah, I could have done this offline or off camera, but as usual, I think it's more interesting to sort of work through this on camera so you can see the process. So we're integrating into our automated build. We need to improve the file list code. It shouldn't be so manual. But that will come later. So for now, let's say we want source client vendor jQuery 1.8.2 and Raphael 2.1.0. And let's bundle that. Okay, so now we've got everything. Holy moly, do we ever. Yeah. Well, let's see what happens if we load it up. It says Raphael is not defined. And Eve is not defined. That's probably why Raphael isn't defined, because this broke. I'm going to not bundle Raphael and jQuery for the moment, just because sometimes with these modularization tools, they if the code's not designed to work with the tool, they can be a little bit iffy. So let's go ahead and do this. So I've got the jQuery and Raphael in directly. Let's reload. Still not finding Raphael. Oh, well, let's rebrowserify it. So we take those out of the bundle. Okay. This is more promising. It's not finding jQuery, but it is finding Raphael. So why isn't it finding jQuery? Because we put them in the wrong place. They're supposed to be in vendor. Let's try that. Ooh, that looked like it worked. Yes. Okay, it worked. Sort of. Ooh, and there's some funny little artifacts. Oh, look. Yeah, check out. See those little artifacts appearing when I draw? That's something to investigate later. At any rate, I think that's enough for this episode. So we've got bundle sort of working from our Jake file. It's not working in a way that's great. And we've also got this issue with little lines appearing when we draw. But we do have this integrated into our automated build, sort of. But what we don't have is we don't really have the ability to, it's not really automated. We're currently copying a bunch of this stuff over manually. So I think what we need to work on next time is we need to figure out how to build all the code, HTML, vendor files, etc. And where do we want those to live? And there's also the question of deployment, which we might just punt on that one. That's what's going to come up next time. As usual, so the issue, you actually using Browserify here is not that hard. The question is, how do we fit it into our ecosystem? How do we make it really run well for us and work well for us? And that is going to be the challenge of this. But once we get it working, of course, then we'll be back to the case where it's run one command and have everything work beautifully. So it's going to take some effort, but we are going to get there. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. I will catch you next time.